Thank you for joining us again. This is Paul Wilson.
And Chris Emke.
You're listening to the Diesel Performance Podcast. Guys, we've had an overwhelming response on Facebook. We want to give a big thank you to everybody. I jumped on the computer and...
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a special shout out, Paul Wilson, for once again motherfucking me.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
A few of you who had more than 3 days old of a message, I wrote in and blamed Chris for not getting back to you. So thank you. And a huge shout out. The person I felt the worst about not getting back to was Kurt Wheeler out of Alaska.
Sorry, Kurt.
Kurt has reached out to us on behalf of 907 Diesel, the biggest diesel group in Alaska.
Shout out.
He gave us an invite last year to go to their big sled pole and dyno event. We were not able to make it. Although one of these years, I'm putting that one in the budget. Like we're going to Alaska.
I want to go to Alaska.
Yeah, when it's nice out too, because they're out sled pulling, right? So like that's when to do it. So Kurt actually also has an 05 Ram, G56, HP tuner tunes, 63 millimeter Cheetah, third gen manifold, 50 horsepower nozzles on some rebuilt bodies, 10 mil CP3, AirDog ARP studs, valve springs, the basics. He's going to upgrade to essentially what's a 45% over injector.
Okay.
I think he called them the Big Bang 1.5s.
Hell yeah.
Anyways, his question was, I got a goal of having like around a 650 horsepower daily driver tow rig, and he does tow pretty often.
Okay.
Right? He wants also to be able to jump on a dyno and swing big dick and make that 750, 800 horsepower. This is the perfect fucking truck to do it with. Can I say that to get started? Like,
yeah, it is.
If you want like a great tow rig and be able to jump on a dyno once in a while and make a bunch of power, you started with the right framework.
I mean, not even that, just the value, the investment. You know, you're not going to find a more simplistic approach to make that power than you are a 5.9 platform.
Absolutely.
So, I would say, he said his goal was like, 650 horsepower for daily driving and towing application. He wants the truck to potentially peak out at around 750, 800 horse. I would say that the injector size he was talking about, I'd want to bump that up a little bit more. Maybe get into like, I'm not big with the big bang injectors, but probably like something in the 60% range.
Yeah.
I prefer that myself. The 63 millimeter Cheetah, I mean, we have some experience with that. We have a turbocharger that's somewhat comparable. So we have that understanding when it comes to that size being in an HE351 frame. So compounding over that, I would match that up with like an S475.
It's so funny you say that, Chris, because a part of his message actually detailed, I am thinking about a twin turbo kit and putting a 475 or a 480 over my Cheetah. I don't really want to get into my primary charger. Obviously, this segment comes from WCFab. Yeah. Thank you so much to our sponsor, Jason Wehrli, and the team over there at WCFab. Yeah. We would strongly urge you to consider an S475 over stock kit on this with a larger set of Exergy injectors.
Yeah. I think that would be, like I said, he already has the framework. He already has all the supporting mods. Kurt, you're literally a set of injectors and a compound or an add a turbo setup away from all of your goals. So, if you have any questions, feel free to give us a shout. And, we'd be glad to help, even though I'm 3 days late on responses and Paul had to get on the phone or on the computer after hours. Thank you.
You know what's funny, Chris, is I'll give it to you. At Calibrated Power and Duramax Tuner, you are on your A game. Yeah. Why don't you give Kurt your contact info over there so he can follow up with you? We'll give you the Cummins one here.
Absolutely. I'll definitely reach out to him.
Perfect. Awesome. Duramax Tuner has been launching a new video series. They've brought us that video series into a podcast form as well, so we're going to be doing a quick review. Cold Weather Starts on the Diesel Insights video series from Duramax Tuner.
It couldn't have come at a better time. Just all of the phone traffic that we've been getting over at the shop, guys calling. I mean, we've been getting some crazy cold weather in the Midwest, but even in the southern states, like all across the U.S., it's been a little colder than usual.
I love when there's an ice storm in Oklahoma because it means the whole country is fucking
or snow in Florida.
Like, nobody knows
what is that?
Right.
Snow in Florida, man.
They shut it down. Nobody knows what to do. Nobody owns a shovel. They don't know what to do with their diesels when it's cold either.
Let's dive into this, Paul. Diesel, you've owned them. I've owned them. We lived in the Midwest our whole lives. What do you think about when you think about cold weather and diesel engines?
Number one, I think about MPGs because that's the largest volume of calls I got.
Yeah. I can tell you, I've always considered buying a gas engine for the winter because my fuel economy does go down, and that's why I have a diesel, whether it's my car or the trucks I've owned over the years.
Right.
But there is a significant drop, and that comes from two parts. You know, here in the Midwest, we actually have summer blend fuel and winter blend fuel. And the winter blend fuel, it burns quick. It burns quick, to say the least. And secondly, the engine, it takes so long to get to operating temp. So when you have these engines not running at operating temp or running lower than operating temp, they're going to utilize more fuel because they're trying to get warm. They're trying to get to operating temp.
It's elevated idle, man.
Yep.
It is there to get the truck warmed up, but it also costs fuel to do that. So that's a real basic one. Fuel gelling is one of those calls that I get. I don't want to say often because I really don't. It's once in a while, but when you get them, it is heartbreaking because you have somebody who has to get to work. It's early in the morning. They went out and started the truck early. It started. Yep. It's been sitting there idling for 20 minutes. They get in, they drive it. They make it all the way out of their driveway to where now they're in the fucking road.
Yep.
And then poof. It dies on them, and they can't get it to crank back over.
I mean, I've been in this situation. You know, I get underneath the truck with a propane torch, and I'm like, come on, just fucking warm up, you know?
So stupid. But, not the recommended way to fix that.
And it happened to me this year. It happened with, I have several vehicles. It happened with one of my spares.
Yep.
And it's not as simple as just letting it thaw out. You know, the fuel filter's trash. Generally, you have to bleed the system again. I mean, it's a process.
Yeah.
I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
No, for sure. And that's really, I guess my thing on gelling is your best way to prevent gelling is store your truck inside. If that's not possible, I'm sorry. Get creative or be prepared.
Make sure you have additive in the truck, anti-gelling additive. It's not the end-all, be-all, but it does help.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things, you know, Nick over at Duramax Tuner, he ran into this. So, you know, we have a lot of shop vehicles, and those vehicles aren't always used. Right. And in the fall, you know, it got 20 degrees, 15 degrees, and he took one of the vehicles home, and it had summer blend fuel still in there. That motherfucker gelled right up. So, you know, it's one of those things, come pick me up. Well, it was a cold spell. It ended up warming up. He was fine. But, you know, you run into stuff like that. So
it happens.
It happens.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, last week we had talked about some of the do's and don'ts from Exergy, one of them being don't pour a bottle of 911 in. It'll just bleed a hole through it, things like that. Some of the other things you can do is not delete your intake heater or grid heater, fix your glow plugs, or at least have 6 or 7 working ones. That was my favorite.
Don't call your tuner and say, hey, man, I got, you know, glow plug 3, 4, and 6 out. Can you just shut the codes off?
You just asked for that on your shit yesterday. Today.
I said don't call your tuner. I can do what I want. I know the repercussion, okay? I'm cool with that. But, you know, every winter I tell myself this. I'm going to make sure my harness for the glow plugs are good. I'm going to make sure the glow plugs are all working. I'm going to make sure I have a block heater that works. Yeah. You know, and if you have, you know, a Cummins, don't delete the block or the grid heater. And in the Duramax, like you said, don't delete the intake heater.
No, it makes sense. Those things are there for a reason. If you live in somewhere that has cold weather, there's no benefit to deleting them. We've looked at it with flow charts and all of that and horsepower numbers and
data.
There's no benefit there. I understand the concept, but do yourself a favor, leave those working. Yeah. Speaking of Exergy's do's and don'ts, we of course have some new do's and don'ts from Exergy. So, really simple ones this week, Chris. Why don't you kick us off with the don't?
You know what? So I get this a lot. You know, I own a common rail, you know, a Duramax, Cummins, what have you. I want the truck to last. Okay. The flip side of that, I have a lot of guys that say, oh, I blew up my motor 150,000 miles. Oh, what happened? Oh, an injector failure. So most of the common rails, you're going to have some premature, you know, showings, if you will, you know, hazing at idle, fuel in the crankcase, little things like that. If you know that you're having an injector issue, don't push it. Replace them. Injectors are expensive, but replacing a motor is much more expensive.
I got this call this week. Hey, man, I checked my balance rates. We went through how he checked them. So just like our previous Exergy do's and don'ts, he checked them correctly. And he says, I got 3 injectors that are over 7. Okay. Everything else is like within 1 to 2. Can I drive on it? And I just kind of stopped for a second. I thought, because my initial instinct is to scream, no, why would you do that? But like, I do understand that desire, that idea of like, how bad is it? Here's my thing. It's kind of like what you just said. If it's kind of bad now, driving on it's just going to continue to make it worse. You're not going to put an additive in there to fix it. You're not going to limp it by. That's not something you do with injectors. You really, as soon as you identify that there's an issue, either stop driving the truck or repair it. Those are your best options. Anything beyond that is a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about longevity out of the engines, you know, maintenance is always one, you know, but the heart and soul, I feel, of any common rail engine is the injectors. And when they're bad, that becomes a maintenance item. Yes, common rail injectors are expensive, but as I said earlier, you know, just do it, get it over with. have the truck to last another few 100,000 miles.
That's it, man. That's it. Okay, and then the do from Exergy this week is going to be put an LB7 regulator on an LB7 CP3.
Wait, so my buddy said if I put an LBZ regulator on, it's going to make more power?
Yeah, so here's the idea behind that, right, is an LBZ regulator, LBZs themselves have a higher scaled rail pressure. Okay, so they go up to 27,000.
26,000, you're right.
Yeah, 26,000 PSI. LB7s are a little bit lower.
23, 24, somewhere in that ballpark.
Exactly. So the idea is that if I have more rail pressure, I'm going to make more power. Therefore, I should run an LBZ regulator on my LB7, and that'll equate in more fuel, more power. All of these things are controlled in tunes, and really rail pressure isn't what we manipulate to make more power in your tune. Rail pressure is something the truck commands based on what we do manipulate, which would more than likely be pulse width, along with the
injectors and
a lot of other things, right? So the idea here is putting this on. Now, there used to be a situation where you would run into, it was very expensive to buy an LB7 regulator, and it was cheap to buy an LBZ for whatever reason. So guys were doing it just on a cost. They weren't even like, I want more power. They're just like, hey, it's half the price.
Or the flip side, you buy the cheaper regulator, but then you got to buy custom tuning for that. Otherwise, a truck you'd be like Manfred and have a built-in lobe tune. So just want to name drop there.
I love that. Big shout out to Manfred. But yeah, okay. So that's the thing is you do need a tune. This can be corrected if you've already done it. Your EFI Live tuners like Duramax Tuner or the other good guys out there, they can correct this in the tune. However, there's no benefit, and now the cost difference really isn't there. You could just simply get an LB7 regulator from Exergy. So really, really simple on that stuff, guys. I think those are really solid heads up. As far as industry news for the week, Chris, we do have some UCC qualifiers getting announced on a regular basis.
We do.
Along with UCC competitors. Yeah. I'm really excited. I think in the next couple of weeks here, the newsstand is going to finally hit with Diesel Power Challenge, getting some more info out there on who's being voted on. So we're watching those competitions really closely. We're very proud and very grateful to be the official podcast of both the Ultimate Callout Challenge and the Diesel Power Challenge.
It's being an enthusiast in this industry and reading the magazines for years. It's cool now to have one-on-one. I mean, we're going to be interviewing a majority of these guys, so our listeners are going to have a one-on-one, firsthand experience of what the competitors are going through leading up to the event. So it's going to be really cool. I'm really looking forward to all the interviews. We're even going to do some extra, weekend stuff for the interviews just to get them all through. So, I don't do weekend stuff just for the hell of it. So I'm excited.
And finally here, we are very excited to say thank you to Alligator Performance. They've sponsored our special guest interview segment of the show.
Yeah, UCC competitor today, right?
And UCC competitor, Rawlings Barnes.
What's happening, guys?
Oh, man, we're doing good. Getting ready for UCC, starting to get excited to hear everybody getting announced, man.
We're pretty excited about it. I guess, what is it, like a year away, isn't it?
I wish.
that seems to be what everybody thinks as far as their truck plan is away, right? I got a year to do this.
It is. It's like the last-minute crunch, the entire build. So, yeah, I get it completely.
Now, last year you guys went out there and competed. Who drove for you guys last year?
So Aaron drives every year. That's his baby. He bought that truck, believe it or not, off the lot. It's probably only got about 6,000 miles. They've been a little bit hard miles, but it's the truck he bought. I don't even know, man. It's an '08, so I don't know how many. I guess he bought it in '08 or '09, and he's been racing it ever since. A lot of history in that truck. But Aaron drove it both years in UCC, and will be driving it again this year, so we're real excited about it.
That's the same regular cab that he had after he had the crew cab in DPC years back, right?
It is the same two sections of frame rail and roof. But as far as anybody else is concerned, I mean, out of the 25 people that are probably listening to this, it's the same one.
Ooh,
awesome.
He thinks our numbers went up.
Yeah. Correction, 26.
I did get my mom to download it.
Wait a minute. Is that correct? Is that corrected numbers or uncorrected? Maybe. I'm not sure.
It depends what shop you're reporting this from.
Now.
Yeah. What kind of dyno? Yeah, I got you.
Now, you've been doing the drag racing over the last year, though, right?
Not in that truck.
Not right, but
yes.
But for Rudy's
drive truck, yep, that's right. That's right. So we obviously, our company's grown a lot. We're really busy, so we kind of split the duties when we can. Aaron took about a year off, and hasn't done much. We didn't race our four-wheel drive at all last year. We did compete UCC, and definitely didn't have the finish that we wanted, and we just kind of we put all of our focus on the two-wheel drive, and which things went really well with that. Well, we learned a lot with that truck, which was the big thing, and we just got really focused on turning around our program. Finally got in a really good spot, and here we go again with UCC. But instead of doing it simple, like everybody else is doing the same thing, we decided to pretty much start all over again. So we built a completely new chassis, completely new setup for UCC. I think folks are going to be pleasantly surprised with what we roll out of the trailer in Indy.
Well, we're definitely excited for that, and we're going to drill into you a little bit on those finer points. Real quick, I was standing 30 feet away from your truck at the end of the sled pole last year.
Did you get hit with a weight box?
I like the dust from it definitely was in my eyes. What the fuck happened?
So, true story. So Aaron and I had already left, believe it or not. We had some other commitments on Monday. We had to get back, but one of our employees, Zach Peters, drove it in the pole, and in the midst of everything getting swapped over, they forgot to pin the weight bar.
Oh no!
And so it made for some interesting video and some great jokes.
Hey, all publicity is good publicity.
I totally agree. I mean, why do you think we ran on the dyno with the motor pretty much done already? So yeah, of course.
Well, that was the other thing. You guys had some challenges on the dyno, but absolutely zero fear. So was I correct in catching some of the aftermath on this? The engine blew on the dyno, kept going, and then threw a new engine in it for the sled pole?
We did, man. We did. We brought an extra engine, and the engine actually pretty much was done after the drag race. That was the triple turbo motor that made almost 2,000 horsepower the year before.
Yeah.
And we really, man, I'm going to be honest with you, it's all about getting the right program and the right people, and we really struggled for a few years. We were able to make power, but we just weren't able to make things consistent. That was our goal with the two-wheel drive, is we really wanted to go out there and be consistent. And so we just decided to go back to the drawing board. And I think we talked about it on the show last time. We decided to go from triples down to a single and let's just worry about making runs and making passes and making the thing reliable and stop, fretting over drive pressure. And so that's what we did. And that triple motor just really, really, really had a lot of struggles with bearings, just the whole oiling side of it. And so, we can talk about some of the details, but we definitely are not running triples on our truck this year. And, but yeah, that motor let go in drag racing. We ended up running on the dyno anyway, and then it completely let go. We swapped motors just for the sled pole.
Is it safe to say from our last interview with the two-wheel drive, you're doing a full standalone on that? Will you be running something similar on the UCC truck this year?
Absolutely. We're pretty stoked about it going back with the Motek. And
awesome.
So we actually, I'll give you a couple things that nobody else knows about yet, but we're going to take the Motek race pack combo that's in the two-wheel drive truck now. That'll be going in the four-wheel drive truck because we were real happy with that setup. And Motek has got some pretty cool new pieces that they debuted at SEMA and PRI, and we're going to be transitioning over to that in the two-wheel drive. Basically, it'll be all Motek, so there won't be any race pack, won't be any smart wire. Everything will be controlled through the Motek. We'll run that for this season in the two-wheel drive, and if it all goes well with that, then we'll pull the rest of the race pack stuff out of the four-wheel drive probably next year. But we know all of that stuff, and we know it very well, so we figured that'd be a good fit in the four-wheel drive truck.
I mean, you had a full year of proving that, right? So
yeah,
you got to work with what you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it just made more financial sense than to go buy, a whole nother setup that we knew we were going to ultimately change. Motek has been great working with us, and developing this really, as we go and adding features and so the setup in the 2-wheel drive this year is going to be really cool. But it's the same foundation that we'll swap over in the UCC truck. So that, the same ECU, all of that will be the same.
Cool.
It's really just the data logging stuff. It's a little bit cumbersome to go back and forth between the race pack and the Motek, and this will make it much more seamless.
Nice.
Very cool.
Nice. Okay, so the tuning's nailed down. It sounds like you guys have a really confident plan on there. Can we talk a little bit about the turbo setup? Can you give us some insight? Not triples, quadruples,
Yeah, it won't be triples.
twin parallels?
Yep. Yeah, like 6 or 7. We're just going to like turbo on turbo action. It's man, I told you last time. I'm a firm believer now in not overthinking it. And we have found some combinations that work really well. I will tell you that it won't be triples. It will be less than 3, but there will be 2 different setups. And I'll just kind of let your mind wander on that. But we will have 2 different setups, and we'll see how it goes, man. We're still early in the game. We decided to build a new chassis. The truck is 16 inches lower than it was the last time you saw it.
What?
Holy fuck!
It is amazing, man.
Wow.
Our fabricator and I call him our crew
16
chief
inches.
all the time, but Nathaniel DeLong is killed it on this thing. It is amazing looking. So we are building this truck to run UCC, but we're not cutting corners to be able to race it. And so our plan is to race it the full ODSS season in Pro Street. So we'll be actually racing that truck the weekend before UCC at our event.
Holy shit.
That's awesome.
You're the
Yeah.
second guy. Charlie Keeter, I think, told us, too. He was heading out there for that one. And I think his exact words were, if it makes it through that, I guess I'll take it to UCC.
Yep. We actually, we are going to run it. That's the first points race. We'll be running it there. And then we'll load up a couple days later and head to Indy.
Very cool.
So
We're
let's talk.
excited about it.
Let's talk a little bit about the plan while you're there. Now, last year, you guys were able to flip around disaster into success pretty quickly. The pins got missed on the weight box, but the run was done. It didn't actually affect the distance he pulled. It was a good pull. It was definitely a solid run. Do you guys plan on bringing backups 2 of everything? What happens if all the turbos blow up? You know what I mean? Like, how much do you bring in reserve to prepare for disaster?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, there's a lot of advantage, too, that some of us have run UCC both years, and you learn so much year to year. I remember the first year, out in Utah, and I remember looking around and just everybody was like in a daze. Levon obviously killed it, as he always does, and his crew, and they had spent a lot of time thinking through it, and then we saw even more of that last year. I think there's parts that you definitely have to bring backups on, but you've got to decide where that ends, because you can't bring every single thing.
Right.
Not realistically, I guess. We've got a 58-foot semi and a 42-foot gooseneck, but you still can't get so many parts in there. And so we have tried to think through the parts that we believe are the weak links, and we will bring backup to those. We actually designed this chassis with the thought of changing out drivetrain or engine. So we've kind of thought ahead a little bit about that, because last year changing that motor out in the pits was horrible. Definitely don't want to go through that again. So if we should we have to do anything like that this year, it will definitely be a lot easier and a lot quicker for us.
Gotcha. Okay. Now, obviously, you guys are starting to build a real racing pedigree over there at Rudy's Diesel Performance. I understand you also have just expanded the racing shop, or the dedicated area just for the racing program.
Yeah, actually, we had a 12,000 square foot service facility, and our service business is a very, very small part of our business, and it's been dwindling down for the last couple of years, by choice. And we made the decision to really focus on racing this year. And so ended up pulling all but 2 lifts out of the shop and converting into a full-blown race shop. So we have, it's we're in NASCAR country, and so we were able to tour a NASCAR shop and kind of model some of what they're doing in turning things around. So we have our hauler parked in the shop. We have each race truck, because we're going to campaign 2 trucks this year, so each truck has its own spot with its own parts. We've got an engine building, like a clean shop just for building race engines. It's pretty cool, man, and it's also a place where our customers, when they're in the area, we can take them and show them what we're doing. And racing has definitely become a big part of what we do at Rudy's now, and it's the only marketing and advertising we do, so we definitely enjoy it.
Cool. Can I assume then that you're going to push real hard to be the fastest on the track?
Yeah, I don't know what you guys ask every competitor, and I'm sure every competitor's got their own way of going about UCC, but I feel like you've got to focus on what your platform, what your team is best at, and then work backwards from there. And for us, we're drag racers. I feel like that's going to be our strong point, and that's what we're going to focus on. We're not going to be able to make as much power as Vaca and some of those other guys. There's no way. It's not going to happen. We know that, and so I feel like we've got to focus on the events and the disciplines and that we know we can do well at. So drag racing is number 1. Dyno would be number 2, and I think sled pulling is probably last, because I think it's kind of a Hail Mary no matter what.
Okay.
I always think it's funny they put the sled pull on day 3 because to me the sled pull is the hardest on the truck, for sure, right? Like this is what's going to break shit if shit's going to break. Yeah. So if you're still hanging around, that's it though, right? Is like if you've made it to the sled pull event, like now this shakes it loose. Like whose truck is actually going to make it down the track and pull off? And there were some impressive moves last year. We saw some big stuff. Dropping the truck 16 inches, you're not going to be able to fit those big ass mud boggers on there. Like you're not going to be able to float on the dirt, man. Like what's the plan there?
Yeah, so we've got some interesting things for that. And like I said, we looked at it like, what is our strongest, what is our weakest? And we felt like the sled pull is the biggest, it's the 50-50 shot. You really don't know what's going to happen. And so we built our truck kind of based around that mentality. Plus, like Levon, and Levon's like in a whole different category, right? I love those guys to death. But they're in like a whole different world, and he's been able to do everything and do it well. Yeah. For us, we know where our weaknesses are, and we're gonna do our very best to do better at everything else. And sled pulling is, like I said, it's the 50-50 thing. The truck is really low. It's made to drag race. There's definitely going to be some give and take on that, but we're hoping we'll do well. I guess we'll see.
I feel like that's a strategy though, because like you said, you're going to identify what you're good at. You want to shine in that area, and you've also identified that you guys aren't sled pullers, or the truck isn't going to be set up to sled pull, but you already know that going into this. You've already identified that, and the big thing here is guys that if they're pushing their trucks or they're not set up for a specific thing, I feel like that's where a lot of the fuckage or a lot of the breakage is going to take place.
For sure.
So it's
I agree, and I think you got guys that are stronger in one area than others, and they you can look at the trucks and you can see that. You can tell that they're more weighted to one side or the other. Whether it's drag race or sled pulling or dyno or whatever. I think the coolest thing about UCC is that it's pushing the envelope in our industry to think outside the box, to develop new parts, to develop new ways of going about things, and not just sticking a Cummins in any vehicle and hoping it'll do something. I think it's cool to see people thinking outside of the box. It's just like Wagler's truck. Yeah. Who would have ever thought that Jeremy and those guys would bring that to try to compete in UCC? But, I think they learned a lot. I'm interested to see how things go moving forward. But I love to see the envelope getting pushed. And for us, we're not going to build a UCC truck. We're building a truck to race this season, and we're going to do UCC with it. There are some things that we wouldn't have done. We built a chassis, so there are some things we would have done different if we weren't going to do UCC. We've got to think about the Sled Pole side of it. Hopefully we don't fold our brand new chassis up. But, it's definitely cool to see the envelope getting pushed, no doubt about it.
You said it well, man. Absolutely. Well, Rawlings, I definitely appreciate you carving out some time out of your busy schedule for our listeners today. Anybody you would like to give a shout out to, or any final notes you'd like to give to our listeners?
No, I appreciate everybody that supports UCC. We're looking forward to having a great year. I know tickets are on sale. There's discount codes all over Facebook, social media. I have a hard time talking. But, man, I appreciate everybody coming out. Looking forward to seeing some great fans out there. And I appreciate what you guys are doing for the industry and helping us all out. Who do you guys think is going to win anyway? I should put you on the spot.
Man,
I dig it. No. Thank you so much for putting us on the spot. Chris, let's hear it. Real world prediction.
I mean, I'm a Cummins guy, right? I am. I think
he's scrambling, man.
So here's the reality of it. I don't want to see LeVon win again. Okay, personally, I don't. Okay, but he is.
We're going to interview him at some point.
I know that.
I'm sure he doesn't listen to the show. You're good.
Probably, but it's like he's won DPC, he's won UCC. I would love to see someone else win. I don't really have a specific person in mind, but honestly, it would be incredible to see someone in a Ford application win. Honestly.
Okay.
Prove a point.
Wade Minter made a big splash last year. Mike Graves, I've seen guys like grab whatever broke off of their shit, and hold it over their head, but I've never seen somebody so excited to break their truck as Mike Graves. I would love to see Mike win one. Everybody we've talked to, out of everybody we've contacted at this point in January, nobody has a truck together that's running.
No.
Let me preface my prediction with that. Based on that, it is really hard to guess. I mean, D Rose, huge fucking showing last year, right?
He had a truck that was untested. I mean, there was a lot of stuff there, with a new engine, but I just don't want to see a Cummins win.
I really think that if I was going to bet my money on it, I would bet on LeVon. I just think he's going to be hard to beat at this point. I think he's proven that he can go through all three and do all three well. The strategy, I don't know if it's the strategy or the pit crew that get guys through the UCC into the final stages. Like Derrick Rose, all the guys who did well, right? Any of them, you look at them, it's it could be either. Because it certainly wasn't just who had the most money. And I know a lot of guys have said that about UCC, but look at XDP's not a small shop. They couldn't keep the truck together, right? It's a tough fucking competition.
That contest made them regroup and recamp.
And that's why I think LeVon's the guy to beat. That's just the obvious pick.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody bashes UCC. What I've seen out there, people bashing it is talking about the money, and everybody's like, well, we don't have the budget to compete. We don't have it. But it's a little bit of everything. You don't see just guys that spend hundreds of thousands of dollars. You see guys, that really run their program on the shoestring, and they do well. I think it's just neat to see what shows up because not everybody's showing their cards. Not everybody is even remotely showing their cards. I mean, we've heard some things through the rumor. We're excited to see what shows up.
Yeah.
But I love LeVon and those guys. They're very, very, very close friends. I would love to see somebody else win. Those guys, I would never say they don't deserve to win because they do, but I would love to see somebody new win.
And that's one thing I want to bring up. I don't want to get any flack for saying that I don't want to see him win because they rightfully deserve it. But it would be nice to see see things, have the tables turn a little bit, right, and see something that no one expected.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
That's what the industry is
built on. It's going to be awesome, man. And how many days we have got a year, right? Isn't it 10 months? We got a ways to go.
Yeah, you show up in a year. That'll make it easier for somebody for sure. Awesome. Thanks so much, Rawlings. You have a great day, sir.
Hey, thanks, guys. Y'all have a good one.
The Diesel Performance Podcast is brought to you by Calibrated Power Solutions, home of DuramaxTuner.com. Calibrated Power develops emissions-equipped calibrations for a wide variety of diesel powertrains, including Duramax, Cummins, Powerstroke, John Deere, Case, New Holland, and many more. For more information and the best customer service in the industry, check out calibratedpower.com or call 815-568-7920. That's 815-568-7920. If you'd like to contact the podcast, send us a message through Facebook or email Paul at DuramaxTuner.com or Chris at CEHMKE@DuramaxTuner.com. Both Paul and Chris may be contacted by phone. Paul's extension is 2121. Chris is 2122. Hey, thanks for listening. Your feedback is appreciated. Please rate and review us on iTunes, subscribe on YouTube, like us on Facebook, and by all means, let us know if you have any ideas for a podcast. We'd love to hear from you.
Special shout out Paul Wilson for once again motherfucking me.
Yeah.
Like, Jesus Christ.
A few of you who had more than 3 days old of a message, I wrote in and blamed Chris for not getting back to you. So